Howdy. I'll repeat a little bit of that. Um, let's see, screen share. This one. On the screen share, do you see your faces off the side right there, like this thing, or no?
No, we just see you.
Okay, cool. So I named this the opportunity that's right in front of home buyers that they don't see, because the way I look at it is that I think when buyers are buying a property, that's exactly what they think. I'm buying a place to live. How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? Does it have a cool bathroom? Does it have a view? Does it look over an alley? How's the school? And those are all important things. I don't discount any of that. But what I think that buyers don't see is how financially buying a home is going to impact their life for the better. And this just illustrates it in multiple different areas. And I've never sold a home to a buyer, so I can't speak from the shoes and the hats that you guys are wearing. But I think it's important that they look at it a little bit through another lens and not just the school and not just the color of the carpet, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a NerdWallet survey that was done in 2023, and 83% of the people that were polled said that buying a home was a priority to them. I'm sure you guys aren't surprised by that. 28 million people plan to buy a home in 2023. But if you look back in 2022, only 5.95 million homes sold. So you have 28 million people in 23 that wanted to buy it, but the previous year, only 5.9. I think in 2023, the final number was well under $5 million. I believe it might even be closer to only $4 million. You have 28 million people wanting to buy only 4 million homes. 70% of those people planned to buy a home in 2022, but they failed because their offers weren't accepted or they couldn't afford the home. We all know why their offers weren't accepted, right? They either didn't go high enough, they weren't all cash, whatever that might have been. 57% feel worse about their ability to buy a home in 22 to 23 because mortgage rates will be higher. Now, they have come down a lot. That's good news. But this is the questions that I ask. What if buyers were guaranteed? Now, use the word guaranteed cautiously, and we'll go back to that, that their property would appreciate over 40% in the first 7 years they owned it. Do you think they'd be less concerned about overbidding for that house? You know, they lost it for 5 or 10,000 bucks. Was it really worth it? What if buyers were guaranteed their mortgage payment would drop sharply over the next few years? Would they be less concerned about higher interest rates and payments? I think so. You know, if rates were 3% right now, I have a feeling they probably would be less concerned. And they don't see that. They don't see that on their trajectory. But what if we could show them that that potentially is on their trajectory? And not 3% interest rates, just lower payments. Lower payments will happen even if rates don't drop. I want to come back to this one. Buyers are guaranteed their property would appreciate 40%. I think one of the things that we have with buyers now is that they're not used to overpaying for anything. They want to buy this Yeti bottle and they walk into a Yeti store, it's like 55 bucks. And they go on Amazon and it's $51 and they can have it tomorrow, no tax or whatever. They're going to do it. They're going to save $5. You don't want to overpay for anything. But when it comes to real estate, it doesn't apply. And that's one of the things we have to educate them. What if buyers were guaranteed the return on their investment, the down payment, would be 300 to 500% in 7 years, maybe over 1,000% in 10 years? What if buyers knew that owning versus renting benefited them hundreds of thousands of dollars in just a few years? So these are the 4 main questions that we're going to go over. Let's go over rent versus own. So the last one here was, what if they knew owning versus renting benefited them hundreds of thousands of dollars? Here is somebody looking at Torrance. They're buying an $800,000 house. They're renting for $3,700. I want you to just focus on my mouse for a minute. Don't look at all the graphs because we'll go through it slowly. If they rent, their payment is $3,700. If they buy, it's $6,500. Huge payment jump from owning versus renting. Okay. If you rent, your rent's going to go up a little bit every year. So by the end, if it goes up just Here's a 6% increase, which is about where it's going in Torrance. They're going to be paying around $6,000 of rent 9 years from now. Okay. The payment difference between owning versus renting is $202,000 more to own than to rent. No one can argue that the payment is higher, but you can't just look at the payment. This also doesn't take into effect the possibility of refinancing and dropping. However, when you rent, right, based on Torrance's expected appreciation of 6%, the property, they're going to have $569,000 of appreciation. They'll have paid off $88,000 of their mortgage. They're going to have $137,000 tax savings, but we're also going to hit them with the real estate commission to sell it. So we're going to deduct $68,000. And after 9 years, is $509,000 better to own that property than to rent. So how do you get them from a $3,700 rent payment to a $6,500 mortgage payment? This is it. It is uncomfortable. It is a big payment, but is it worth being a little uncomfortable to build $509,000 worth of wealth? That's the question. So it's just a matter of educating them. These are illustrations that we can do for anybody. We can do them quickly. This is a real estate report card for Torrance. It's probably about 2 months old. Median home price in Torrance is about $761,000. Down here, you could see appreciation over the last 63 years in Torrance has been 5.5, the last 10 years, 6%, the last 5 years. And these are the projections going forward. I believe this projection's probably been revised upward because this is just a few months old. I'm going to skip the rest. This also, Torrance shows historical appreciation, 3 stars. That's the highest rating of, they have the highest category of median income. Appreciation forecasts are in 3 diamonds, which is the highest level. Great city. Now let's take a look at home appreciation. Now this is on a national level, not California, not South Bay, right? We are looking at the 40s, 129% cumulative appreciation. Each year was 3%, 11%. You can see those are pretty good years. The 50s, not as hot, but still 36% appreciation cumulatively. The 60s, kind of a more flat year. It's interesting. I think of my parents that bought their house back then. I asked them, did you think you'd make that much money on your house? Nobody who bought a home in 1960s were thinking they were going to get rich on real estate. Although if you bought a house in Manhattan Beach in the 60s, you paid $35,000 for it. Do you think they even had an idea that would be worth over $2 million just for the land? Never even crossed their mind. 70s, 80s, 90s, our first 2 years of negative growth. So we had 2 negative appreciation years in 1990 and 1991. Other than that, it was a fairly flat 10 years, but we still had 30% appreciation over 10 years. And then as you remember, the Great Recession, the mortgage bubble, 2007, 8, 9, there's 5 years of negative appreciation. In some markets, as you know, it was 20%. In some markets, it was 50%. Not in a given year, but total cumulatively over that period of time. And if you look at this 81 years here, 7 of the years are negative. I think 2 or 3 of the years are flat and the rest are up. Total 81 years average appreciation over 7%. If you get rid of the 5 years of the mortgage bubble, only 2 years were down. I illustrate that because I don't think we could ever have this mortgage bubble ever again with stated income loans and the 100% LTVs. And we have more equity in homes than we've ever had before. And then here's 2023. As you can see, 23 wasn't on that slide. Here it is month by month, super granular, except for Zillow. Every national index is in the positive for the year. And if you look at all these yellow ones, those are all-time high readings in real estate values. So across, okay? And this is the one I shared to you in an email, and I really like this slide. Anyone who bought a home in the last 82 years and owned it for 10 years made money on their home, with the exception of the people that bought a home in 2006. So think of that again. You bought a home, you held it for 10 years. This is the percentage that it appreciated in 10 years. This is a $100,000 home, right? Look at 1946. At the end of 2 years, it basically doubled. Think of it. Let's go forward and look at the example I gave you today, 2012, 13, 14. If you bought a $100,000 home, it doubled in value. Now let's call it $1 million home. If you bought $1 million home, chances are you didn't pay all in cash. You put $100,000 down on $1 million home, and
Hey,
at the
Brett.
end of 10 years, that home is worth $2 million. So your $100,000 down payment is now worth $2.06 million minus the $730,000 that you owe on it. Your $100,000 grew by about $1.3 million. I just don't know what else you can't do it in the stock market unless you bought Apple before it went public or when the day it went public. So there's very few people that know how to do that. Real estate is the bet. And the reason why is because of leverage.
Hey, Brett.
Yeah.
You mentioned that people have made money after 10 years in any time in history except for 2006.
Yes.
But I would argue if we looked at our local market, I'm guessing that if you bought something in 2006 and then sold it in 2016 in Manhattan Beach or Hermosa or South, I'll bet you made money.
Absolutely.
I'll bet that doesn't apply for, yeah.
Yeah, I bought my house in 2005 in Manhattan Beach, and in 2015, probably not quite double, but pretty high. You're right, Aaron.
Yeah.
National is difficult because the country's large, and the majority of the real estate in this country is rural. The majority of population is on the coasts, so that does make up a lot of population. Here's an example, excuse me, of $1 million purchase with 10% down. Really conservative. This was done a few months ago, so the rate's 7. The rate now is significantly lower, but let's just be real conservative. Someone buys $1 million house, they put $100,000 down. Here's their mortgage payment, not including taxes or insurance. It does include PMI. Here's their mortgage payment, $6,067. 1 year later, they refinanced to 6%, so they dropped their payment from $6,067 to $5,439. We bumped their loan amount up to cover their closing costs, so they're not out of pocket. Their loan is now value of $890,000, almost $891,000. And now their $100,000 of our initial purchase after 1 year, they have $159,000 of equity in their home. The next year, they refinance again and drop the rate another full percent. They drop the PMI. So here we go, their payment drops twice. And now they have paid their mortgage down to $883,000. Just 5% appreciation. Now their $100,000 is $219,000. So they're over 100% return on their initial down payment in just 2 years, only giving them 5% appreciation. I had a conversation with a guy who rents, who's a very successful financial advisor, and he says, I'm making 18% in the market. Why would I buy? Well, this is why you buy, because you're making over 50%. You're making 55%. If your home appreciates 5% and you only put 10% down, your return on your investment is about 55% annualized. Here it is over 7 years. Let's just stretch it out. That $100,000 after 7 years, I didn't do any additional refinances, so I left it at 5. Let's hope there's more, but let's be conservative here. That $100,000, they now have $593,000 worth of equity in their home. They've paid almost $200,000 of their mortgage off. The house is worth $1.4 million. Their return on their initial investment is $490,000. I think this is one of those things that gets people over the hump of making that little offer. You're not used to buying a home. You're not used to buying something and paying over after you're overpaying. But if you're going to overpay for something and you're going to make almost $600,000, you're going to overpay by $10,000 or $20,000. Does it really matter? This is the argument for overbidding. And the next question I'm coming up with here is, where's rates heading? The Fed, there's 19 members of the Fed. They all vote every time. As you know, they met last week. Here's the 19 dots of the Fed. Every time they have a rate, a decision to adjust the rates, they all vote on where the rates are heading for this calendar year. So in 2024, 2 of them believe there's going to be 0 cuts. 1 believes there's going to be a 25 bip cut. 5 of them think there's a 50 bip cut. 6 think there's going to be 3/4. 4 of them think there's going to be a full percent, and 1 outlier is 150 bips. So 15 of the 19 members believe we're going to have between a 50 and 100 bip cut. Now, can you put any money on that? Who knows? These guys are wrong a lot, but this is where they think rates are heading. And here's their outlook for 2025, right? And here's their outlook for 2026. If these are where the Fed goes back to, we are back to 3% interest rates. I hope we don't get back to these, to be frank. These are not good. This means the economy is struggling. This means there's problems. This is a very healthy range right here. So do we have lower rates ahead? Most likely. And 15 of the 19 Fed members, I shouldn't say that, 19 of the 19 Fed members all believe we're going to have lower interest rates, except for this guy right here, whoever that is. You have any questions on that? Okay. All right.
I do.
Yeah.
Basic question. So for those of us who may not understand how this works they're voting on a rate, but who actually sets the rate then?
Jerome
what's the dynamic of that?
So they all vote. It's a good question, Mark. And I don't know if the vote actually impacts the rate adjustment or if Jerome Powell actually has the ultimate say, the chairman of the Federal Reserve. And not, by the way, I should also remember there's 19 members. I believe there's a handful that are actual what are called voting members and some that are just members. And I don't know the answer.
Thank you.
By the way, Chairman Powell was on 60 Minutes, I heard last night. I didn't watch it, but I will watch it tonight. And he's not very bullish on real estate. And the interest rates went up yesterday and today. So that's what I've heard, and we'll see. I'm going to watch it for myself. But we're not a fan of Chairman Powell. He has not been a great chairman of the Federal Reserve. At least most of the mortgage and real estate industry don't believe so. So to see where home prices are going in 2024, 2025, and beyond, you have to look at cycles, past cycles, and see how the trends work. Specifically, supply and inventory. How many homes are for sale? Right? Demand. How many buyers are there? Household for that is when a child presumably, or a divorce. If you have a husband and wife living in one house, and the wife moves out because they're getting divorced, that's a household formation. If a child moves out from home, they could rent or own, that's a household formation, right? Household formations are mostly in the age group of about 28 to 36, and that makes up our biggest demographic of home buyers. Housing completions are new construction homes entering the market. You got to also remember that homes are being destroyed too. So for every, I don't know the number, but every 1,000 homes that are built, they destroy hundreds. It's not always new inventory. Believe it or not, birthing rates and vacancy rates also play a big fact on where our real estate price is heading in 2024 and beyond. And we'll go through some of this kind of quickly. Inventory, take a look here. This is from 2013 to 2023. You can see the decline in inventory, right? Obvious, fewer homes for sale and more home buyers. We have a supply demand issue. That's going to keep prices high. Household formations, someone moving out from their parents, a divorcee, etc. Household formations have been on the rise. So formations are blue and completions are orange. So completions is the inventory, or excuse me, new homes, new construction entering the market, more housing supply nationally. And you can see that housing formations are outpacing inventory. Doesn't adjust, this does not account for population. This is just when we're not building enough homes and there's not enough supply to meet the demand. Birth rates. I always find this one a great one. This is interesting to me. I think Aaron and I have talked about this one before. The 33-year-old they are the largest demographic group that are buying homes. In 2006, when we had the last housing bubble, 2006, remember that, the last housing bubble, those people were born in 1973. And if you look at 1973, what happened? Birth rates dropped off. Generation X was a decline in birth rates. Baby boomers were the highest birth rates. Gen X's big decline in birth rates. But what happened during Gen X in 1973? They were building more homes. Now in 2023, when was a 33-year-old born? They were born in 1990. So we've had this giant ride up from the mid 70s all the way to 1990 of birth rates. So we have a record, almost a record number of 33-year-olds right now that were born in 1990. And then you're going to see a slight taper off coming up for the next 20 years or so, but it's only a slight taper off of birth rates. And take a look at this one. In 2006, right? 2004, huge number of homes built. 2005, huge number of homes built. 2006, huge number of home builds. But how many housing formations? How many kids moved out of their home with their parents? How many divorcees fell off a cliff? We had an excess number of homes with a really low population of home buyers. And that number stayed really low, and the home builders got their asses handed to them here because they're building homes, but they had no new buyers, not first-time buyers anyways. You see this? And this is part of the real estate bubble. You can see 2006, 7, 8, 9, too many homes, too few buyers. And then we got them healthy again. Now, the blue lines, remember, are household formations. We have all these people moving out and not enough homes being built. And here's 2023. We don't have the numbers yet. Still more housing formations. I think we have 10, 14 years, 9 years of more housing formations than we do housing completions. So that is going to stay, we're going to have tight inventory for quite a while. Vacancy rate, why does vacancy rate play? In fact, because people have to live. Even if they don't buy, they have to live somewhere. And you can see housing formations, where are they going to go if they can't buy a house? Rent. So now they're taking up another piece of real estate. Vacancy rates are under 1% nationally. They're really low. They're at record low. But if you look at 2005, 6, 7, 8 housing bubble, record high. So we had excess number of rental real estate. So again, an indicator that things are going to stay strong and tight, and appreciation should be high for 2024. And then, excuse me, take a look at inventory in 2005, 6, 7, record high inventory. Now take a look here, 2023, only about 1 million homes. I think that, does anyone on this call know how many homes are for sale nationally right now? I heard it's under 1 million. I heard it's like 800,000, but I can't confirm that. So you could see they were building, there was about 4 million back then. Now I believe it's under 1 million. And this is the year-over-year appreciation. If you go back to that 82-year-old chart, you can take a look. There's the housing bubble. Took a big dump here, 2007, 8, 9. But you could see 71 years were all positive. Millionaires, billionaires. What are billionaires doing? This guy, Don Mullen, he's one of the largest private owners of single-family homes. He is buying billions of dollars of single-family homes. Why is he doing that? Because of this, because of this, because of this. They all believe it. The numbers don't lie. They could see it. They don't believe that 2005 to 2009 could ever happen again. Blackstone, $30 billion. They funded, they closed it. It's a fund to buy single family homes. So that's who your buyers are competing against, not so much in our market, but nationally. There's some zip codes that about 40% of all real estate sales are to Blackstone and other private equity firms. It's amazing. That's all she wrote, folks. But I'd like to answer any questions if you have any. By the way, has anybody lost a buyer to a Blackstone or any other private equity or hedge fund?
No.
Good. Yeah, when they come in our market, it'd be pretty brutal.
So just I have a question, but maybe not related to, maybe I need to ask a banker about that. But if someone like did 100,000 from their 401k, a lot of people do that. They like pull it out, they use it as down payment, and then they have to pay it back, obviously. So if they do that, how do I calculate that to see would the investment for the down payment would be a wiser investment rather than keeping it in their 401k? You know what I mean? So like in 10 years, you said if they did 100,000, they will be making what was the down payment? I'm sorry, on the 800,000, and then you said they will be making about $1 million on their down payment. I was just wondering if they use their 401k.
Yeah.
So
when you're taking money out of a 401k, it's limited to, if you're borrowing from a 401k, it's usually limited to $50,000. So if each husband and wife each borrowed $50,000 from their 401k,
yeah.
I love a 401k loan because they're putting the money back. I don't like them using retirement money to buy a house. I like them to borrow it because they're paying it back to themselves. And before you know it, now you own a house and you have all your money back in your 401k. It's the best of both worlds.
Yes.
Nothing changes. I don't know, I'm going to find that slide. Nothing changes on your appreciation. Is this the one you're looking for?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to know rather than, no, because people were like, well, 401k is safer. We know it's going to be increasing. But then I'm like, that's kind of stock market too. You never know. 401k could, crash too, which it did happen, in 2008. So then they're like, sometimes, I just like kind of like talk to your lender, but this is an option to take a down payment.
Yeah, I mean, if your 401k, if you have $100,000 in a 401k and you're making 10% on your money, after 1 year, you have $110,000. If you buy a piece of real estate, $1 million home with that $100,000.
Yeah.
After 1 year, you have 159,000, and after 2 years, 219. So the 401k, you can't leverage your 401k, so it can never grow like your home can if you can borrow, like when you borrow against it.
That's what I wanted to. Yeah, I wanted to make sure. I thought the same. Yeah, thank you.
I have something to add to that for you. When you borrow from your 401k, you pay an interest rate back to yourself. And it has to be a reasonable interest rate relative to the time. So right now it could be like 5-6%. So they're technically making 5-6% on their money because they're paying it back in that fashion, and then also making the money on their home.
And the balance of their 401k still is in the account earning. We love 401k loans. I think they're a super great tool.
Yes, I had a lot of buyers who did that.
What other objections are you seeing from buyers that are getting outbid on? The one that I see the most on my end is payment shock. They're going I have a kid right now, he lives with his parents, and the property he's looking at has got like a $9,500 payment. He can afford it, but it's freaking him out.
Yeah. And also people have seen that this low interest rate. For instance, my time when I was at 30 years old, I had never seen such a low interest rate. So I could deal with the 9% or other. But then now these guys at this age, you're saying the average rate is like 33. We have those people too, but they're like, but then 2 years ago, like, last it was like, 299, like was 3%. It's just, they can't wrap their head around it. Like, these things change and it won't be the same. And it's probably not going to be like that ever again, or I don't know, in a long time.
So never going to get there. It's, their thought is it's never going to get there again. Those rates are always behind us. And let's assume they're right.
Yeah.
Let's assume they're right. Let's just give them that. The problem with that argument is that if you own a house, well, let's just go back. If you go back on that 81-year chart and you go back and were to survey every homeowner that had a mortgage, how many of them do you think refinanced once, twice, 5 times and lowered their payment? If you drop a rate from 6% only to 5.5%, but you've had the loan for 10 years, your payment's going to drop substantially because you can stretch it out over a new 30 years. You're re-amortizing the loan. I like my example's my favorite. My first house, I owned it for 9 years. I refinanced it 11 times.
Wow.
Every time I dropped my payment significantly.
Yeah.
And I always, if you have a buyer that doesn't say, ask them, do your parents own a home? Do you have a friend that owns a home? Do you have anyone that you know that has owned a property more than 5 years? And I say, okay, great. Ask them 3 questions. How much did they put down when they initially bought it? How much is it worth today? What did they pay for it? How much they put down and what it's worth today? So you could see how much they turned, how much that down payment grew. And I guess it's 4 questions. And the 4th question is, did you ever refinance and lower your payment? And the answer unanimously, I don't care where you go in this country, every single person you ask that bought a home over those last 81 years that we can track, with the exception of a 2 short little windows, all of their properties appreciated and all of them refinanced to a lower payment unless they paid the mortgage off. So why is it not going to happen to you? Why has it happened to everyone else over the last 81 years, but it's not going to happen to you?
Yeah. Thank you.
No guarantees though. That's it. Anyone else? Well, you know, if you don't know how to reach me, you'll get a copy of the slides from Jackie and my contact information's in there. You're happy to reach out anytime, and I can run illustrations, rent versus own, real estate report cards for zip and zip codes, whatever you like.
Thanks so much, Brett.
All right.
Brett,
Thank you.
it's an awesome
Jackie.
resource to have. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you so much, Brett.
Thank you.
Man.